All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Wednesday, February 22nd of 2023 here, getting toward the end of February. Today is the last day of the NBA All-Star break, so basketball should be back tomorrow. So really looking forward to that myself. I'm sure plenty of you are as well. But looking ahead, just what we got going on today, we still got hockey. Hockey is going strong. I know there are some huge hockey contest yesterday. So for all of you playing in the hockey streets yesterday, I hope you guys had a good day. Looks like we got a 3-game slate. And then we also have a pretty early start for the Honda Classic tomorrow for golf. So, if you guys are looking for some lineups to build, maybe check out some Golf Classic. Golf is a fun sweat. You get that 4-day sweat. So, plenty to talk about today. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. You can post questions live in the YouTube chat or in the office hours channel in our Discord server. There is a link in the description below to join the Discord. And if you have been waiting for the All-Star break to sign up, to check us out, there is also a link to a 7-day no strings attached free trial. Check us out. Plenty of sports to play over the next 7 days. So give us a shot. We do this show Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Come here, get your questions answered. Ask anything you guys want, strategy, how to. I am here to help in any way I can. But that being said, going to get SaberSim pulled up here. We do have some questions to get us started today. Some pretty good ones too. I was reading through them before we jumped on. So thank you to all of you guys asking questions throughout the day as they kind of pop in your head here. So one question came in from Naj in as like a follow-up to a question that we were talking about yesterday. So I mentioned like Kelly Criterion and sports betting. We're talking a little bit about our prop plan and stuff. And Naj had a good question here. And then he said, how do you learn what you said about the percentage of each prop bet and the Kelly formula? So I provided Naj with like an article that I found online, kind of breaking down what the Kelly criterion is, talking about, it lays out the formula for you, kind of shows you how to use it, how to walk through it, and things like that. So that link to the article is in the Discord in a thread that Naj and I had. So if anybody's interested, doesn't know kind of where to start, wants to learn more about Kelly, that is a great place to start. And I would highly recommend reading that article, working through it. And then another follow-up on the prop plan here. Naj said, with the prop plan, do y'all do individual picks for the full 6-person flex play? So, and I just kind of clarified what our prop plan is. So our prop plan is not based around prize picks specifically, but rather prop sports betting markets. Users will use the picks that we post. However, we'll use the picks that we post and play those stats or props on prize picks as well if they can find the same line. So a lot of times what happens is like, if you're on the pro plan, we have the pro channel. We do one free bet a day, let everybody kind of get in on the action and have a little fun, do a little teaser. And then for the prop plan subscribers, we do up to 6 bets per day. Depends on, how many games are on the slate, how many bets meet our criteria to become a bet. And from there, we'll post 6. A lot of the times people will say like, hey, I saw, LeBron James points over is up on prize picks, right? And they'll look through the 6 bets. People have thrown around numbers, maybe like 60% of the lines that we post for the props are available on prize picks specifically, but all of the bets that we post are usually widely available on sports betting markets. So, we're not posting it just to do prize picks, but I know people will parlay those into flex plays or power plays if they can get enough of those bets available. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody and kind of clarify what the prop plan is, how to use it, but it is mostly for sports betting markets, DK, FanDuel, MGM, William Hill, Unibet, wherever you can get action down. We try to make sure that the lines are not stale and that the lines are widely available. All right. Good questions there about the prop plan. Apples had a question here, and I'm going to do my best on this one, kind of wide open. This question says, are custom filters limited? So, my follow-up to that would be like limited to what? So if like Apple's, you're here and you can clarify that, that would be great. But kind of, off the bat, my gut answer is like no. Our custom filters are like really strong, and you can upload custom data, and even like that can be included in a custom filter. So that's what like really leads me to say that like no, custom filters are not limited, because you have the ability to upload any custom data you want and include it as part of your metric, right? So for instance, if I go to add metric as a custom metric, and then you click this first drop down. So these are all things that are available on the home screen. If you upload something, maybe it's like I don't know what a good stat here is like for hockey, but if we were talking like NBA and we're not showing like DVP in the app, like defense versus a position, but if that's something that matters to you, right, and that's something that like you want to include in your custom metric, however way you could work that in. If you go to the home screen, you go to upload, upload a column or a CSV, and then you could go click a drop down and do add custom column. And then now it's going to say my column. You can rename it to whatever you want. Maybe I say, DVP here. And then I'm going to hit save. When I hit save, that is going to create a new column on the home screen. And then that new column with the column header is going to be available in your custom metric build as a dropdown. So my answer is it would show up right here under lineup SaberScore on the dropdown in the custom metric pop-up. So like to say custom metrics are limited, like I think the answer is probably no. You can upload any custom data you want, and then you can include it in your custom metric. And whether that's like a value number, whether that is a rank of 1 to 500. That's what's so good about rank, is that you could standardize a wide range of variables to include all of them in your metric. So our custom filters limited. I'm gonna say no. If there's a specific use case that you had in mind, just throw that out to me, Apples, and we could talk about it and see how to incorporate that for you. Ty Daniel said, hola, hello, how is it going? Glad you were able to catch the stream. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, and I will be happy to get to them. All right, next question here from Simple Chef. And this is a pretty good question. Simple Chef said, very relevant to today, newer to the golf side of DFS and seeing many lineups out of 150 with 2,500 plus left on the table. My instinct is similar to NHL and MLB, that variance is so high, salary is so high, salary is not a big deal, and those leaving that much on the table are fine. Any of you having success, willing to share your knowledge, thanks in advance. Yeah, so let's go over here. Let's hop over to golf, and they're teeing off at 6:50 a.m. Eastern over here on the West Coast. That's about 3:50 a.m. So pretty early start there. But yeah, let's talk about this. I think the best place to go is first go to build lineups and then just see what like the min salary is here. So min salary we have at about 47,000 up to 50,000. So not so close to NFL Showdown per se. Like when you're playing NFL Showdown, this min salary is like as low as like 35,000. But that's because one, the player pool is smaller. You're mostly just concerned about, these single game simulations. Golf, not so much the case, especially when we have this big of a field here. Usually these fields, my guess is like somewhere in like the 150 golfer range, depending, how many people have withdrawn and different things like that. So I wouldn't be so worried about duplication, especially in this format. People might get close to the optimal, but they're not going to get exactly you're not going to need the optimal to win a golf tournament, right? That is why we have ownership fade on. If we were worried that, you're probably going to need the optimal, ownership fade would probably be off to not affect the sims. So what happens when sim diversity is on 10 is that we're taking single slate simulations and trying to build the optimal from there. once you turn ownership fade on, you are applying an ownership fade multiplier to all of the golfers that essentially affects their projection. So for high owned golfers, it like taxes them or hurts them. And then for low owned golfers, it gives them a boost to get more of them in your lineups, right? So we're saying, yeah, we do want to sim it only one time, but we know we don't need the optimal. So we're okay applying an ownership fade metric here. I think that's also why the min salary is higher from NFL Showdown. At NFL Showdown, depending on what teams are playing, the slate could be really wide open and you could have these like really low salary builds winning tournaments. But not so much the case for golf, right? I think salary is still important here. I would be okay playing any lineup within this range. Golf is still highly variant. The highest owned golfer on any week can still miss the cut. I remember I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Rahm is like always chalk, right? But he was doing really bad on day 2. And it was like 50-50 whether or not he was going to make the cut. And I think he ended up just killing the back 9 and shooting really well and then shot really well over the weekend. But there are plenty of times where chalk fails in golf and high owned golfers miss the cut. So golf is definitely high variance. I could see the need to have some salary gap here, but we are not diving way into the 45,000s, the 42,000s, the 40,000s to get to these lineups, right? The only time I could see the potential for opening this up beyond this number would be on a bad weather week where the weather is just going to be terrible. You really don't know how golfers are going to do, how they're going to adjust. So I could see on a pretty bad weather week, potentially lowering this min salary to allow some of those different type of constructions, but that's kind of on a week to week basis, something you got to keep in mind and kind of adjust for. I think as a baseline, this 47,000 salary is good in my opinion. So I wouldn't be worried about lineups where they are leaving about 2,500 salary on the table. I'd be more than comfortable playing those lineups. But really good question there, Simple Chef. All right, let's see. Chase has a question here. And Chase said, what are things in the process that can be negative EV for lineups across all slate sizes? Okay, so good question here. What I will say is that, I do want to talk about that question, right? Mostly because, slate size does matter. And slate size probably matters a lot, right? So a 2-game NBA slate is so different from a 9-game NBA slate, right? The same way a 2-game MLB slate is probably a lot different from a 10-game MLB slate. And I'm using MLB as an example because we could kind of talk about the stacking components of it. So on a 10-game MLB slate, MLB is highly correlated, kind of a sport where chalk fails a lot, highly variant. You're not going to need anywhere near the optimal on a 10-game MLB slate. So what you're better off doing is, and the builder will kind of tell you this, right? Especially when baseball season comes, right around the corner, we're going to see the sliders for baseball season. But on these big, huge MLB slates, you're going to see, really high correlation sliders, and then that is going to drop as slate size drops. That is because, what the builder is saying is hey, baseball is wide open. You're not going to need an optimal, in any way, shape, or form. What you're better off doing is capitalizing on intra-team correlations and stacking teams at a really high rate. 4 stacks, 5 stacks, 5 2s, 5 3s, 4 4s, things like that. Really capitalize on those correlations because you're not going to need something that's so close to optimal. But then when you get into these, early Thursday slates where it's 3 games, 4 games, the correlation sliders are going to come down. Sim diversity is probably going to go up a little bit, and your stack sizes are probably going to shrink, right? So in that scenario, the slate is smaller. You're going to need to get closer to that optimal, and you're not going to always need to just bank hard on one team, right? It might be a low scoring slate where you get 3 guys, you do a 3-3-2 or a 3-3 or something like that, right? So it's really hard to come up with heuristics that are good across all slates. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at here. It is really hard to say, X thing is always good no matter the slate size. DFS is like a very nuanced game, and a lot of things matter, right? And that's why when you hear a lot of people talk on DFS shows, they say, well, it depends, well, it depends. Like it really does matter, right? So to say that, what is something that you can do, on every slate is a pretty tough question. If I had to come up with something off the top of my head here, I would say for, well, one, the other thing is like, it could be a little sports specific too here. One thing I would say, what are things in the process that can be negative EV for lineups across all slate sizes? I would say this probably comes down to like a bankroll and risk management answer. Like regardless of sport, sport agnostic, slate size agnostic, what all those things aside, something that can be negative EV for your DFS game in general is probably assuming too much risk, where your bankroll is a little overextended, right? So if you're going to be, EV goes way beyond lineups, right? EV goes beyond, what is your EV in this sport? What is your EV, in NBA versus like MLB? Are you better at one sport than another? What are your, top 1% bucket finishing positions, your 0.1% bucket finishing positions, your 0.5? Are you doing something in one sport that you're not doing in another sport that gives you more edge in one sport versus another, right? So like for me, I am a huge NBA research guy. I don't have like a detailed MLB research process that I feel is unique and adds a lot of value to my process, right? So for me, like I would say, like I'm probably a higher EV, like long-term EV NBA player at the moment, considering that, the seasons change, the sports change year to year, right? Edges change, right? Edges adapt. So at the moment, I feel like I'm a positive EV NBA player. I feel like my EV is probably lower in MLB, right? Golf's a great example. Golf is a basically no correlation sport aside from tee times and weather edge. And, every golfer is basically individual, right? So golf is known as one of the lowest edge sports across DFS, like one of the closest to being solved, right? Like that's what some common thoughts are across the industry, I would say. So one, it depends on like the sport we're talking about. Two, it depends on like slate size, and all of those things matter. But I would say, regardless of all of that, how much risk you are assuming in the post build. Are you diversifying? Are you using min uniques? Are you, managing your exposure and your risk to specific players? One thing that I like to do specifically is I like to kind of equate my exposure to a dollar value. Like say you're playing the $1 150 max and you have 100% of one player. So like you essentially have $150 invested in that one asset, and like, are you okay with that? Because if that guy gets hurt, that guy has a bad game, that's probably going to hurt, your entire portfolio of lineups, right? So I would assume, you can think of it in that way where you are, equating a dollar value to an individual asset or a player. It's not like a perfect thing because, your lineup is created of like multiple assets, each individual lineup. And then you have lineups that create your portfolio of lineups that you take with you into your contest. But it's a way of thinking about it, right? So I would say managing your risk appropriate to how much bankroll you're playing. Maybe you do want to play 150 lineups with one player in all of them, but how much bankroll are you playing on that night? Are you playing 5%? Are you playing 1%? Are you toning it down way, way more than less than 2.5% because you're assuming so much risk? So I think that, there are aspects of contest selection and risk management that can help your long-term EV based on the type of player that you are. So that's my best shot at that, Chase. Let me know if you have any more questions along those lines. And then a couple follow-up questions here from Chase as well. Happy to hit these. All right. Question says, a 10-cent single entry satellite with 10 people will have the same slider settings as a $250 single entry satellite with 10 people should I be changing the sliders as the higher dollar contest will be harder to win or not? Using SaberSim, am I looking to change my process from low stakes to high stakes, or do the same principles apply? Okay, I think this is a really, really good question here. So what I would say is that, I'm just going to use an old slate for this one since we don't have projections up for tomorrow's game yet. So I'm going to go back to last week just so we have some projections up here. That way we could move some sliders around and see what's going on. So if you come into the build screen, right, you have style, you have entry limit, and you have entrance, but you did not have entry fee or, dollar value or something that kind of says like, hey, this is how much the entry is into my contest, right? And as Chase is pointing out here, I think that's still really important, right? The way that a $1 single entry is going to play from a $50 single entry, from a $100 single entry is a lot different, right? And you could find contests that have similar, the same entry limit with a similar number of entrants that are, miles apart in entry fee, which is kind of what Chase is pointing out here. So I think it's pretty sharp to come in and look at the sliders and make adjustments for higher dollar contests. It's something I do usually. Like, I play a lot of satellites and I will have entries to some of these higher dollar contests. I think it's totally okay to come in here and adjust sliders. For me, what I am mostly doing is adjusting two things. One is sim diversity. These contests are sharper, so I'm probably going to need a higher score to take it down. The field is going to be better, so I'm okay taking smaller buckets of sims to try and find high upside players that the field might not be on as much. So one, I'm okay with adjusting sim diversity here, and I'm also okay with adjusting ownership fade. Reason being is that, ownership is usually a lot better in these higher dollar, higher stakes contests. I think maybe better is the wrong word. I would just say like closer to being like appropriate ownership. All of these players in these contests are probably like late swapping and aren't missing swaps. So, when somebody gets ruled out and you go and look at a low dollar contest, not as many people might not have swapped. The player might come in at like 20% owned, but you go back to the higher stakes contest, that player might be 40% owned because the field is rostering that player at a more appropriate rate. Those players are paying attention and not letting that edge slip away, right? So I think that ownership fade becomes more important in these higher dollar contests just because the field is better and knows at what rate these players are closer to being optimal and at what ownership is more appropriate, especially for that specific contest as well. So I think increasing ownership fade, increasing sim diversity makes sense in when you are playing contests, that are higher dollar, but the entry limit and the number of entrants might not be taking that into account. So really good question there. And a last question here from Chase says, since SaberScore can be looked at as a way to determine the EV of a lineup, is a SaberScore of 80, which may be on the low end in the pool, a negative EV lineup, or are all lineups in a pool positive EV and just some less than others? Okay, this is a really good question. So I'm just going to build some lineups here. That way we have some lineups to look at. And I'm just going to make two quick changes. And then we could talk a little bit about the Saber scores here, but it's going to build 500 lineups, and we can look at these. We can talk about these. So just some like backstory, on Saber score, it sounds like you have pretty good understanding, but Saber score is always going to be standardized to 100, right? It's going to analyze, Builder's going to analyze the lineups built in this individual build, standardize the top lineup to 100, and then go down from there, right? So I would say that, the way that I like to do this is I do care about staying closer to the top of my pool, because what is happening is the lineups are getting built. And then SaberSim or SaberScore is going in and saying, okay, move this lineup up, move this lineup down, move this lineup down, move this lineup up, and that matters, right? Lineup grading matters. That is a result of weighing correlation, ownership fade, and the upside of these lineups together, and coming up with the highest EV lineups, right? The only thing is that the builder does not understand risk management, right? It is just jamming EV at a super high rate, right? So if we go to like the top 10 lineups here, we're going to see 10 lineups with Kobe White. We're going to see, 9 lineups with Vujicic. And then we go to the pool. They're in about half of our lineups, right? So, here they're in in our top 10, they're almost in all of them. And then in the pool, they're in a lower amount, right? So once we start to apply diversification factors to handle risk management, such as mini neeks, these plays are going to come down, right? And they might be really good plays, so they might not come down much, but they are going to come down some, right? Kobe White goes from 100 to 80%, so not in 2 lineups. Vujicic goes from 90 to 70%, so 2 less lineups there as well. So even with a diversification factor, they're still really good plays. But, at least you are applying some type of metric to try and account, to try to do some risk management. And then you're still getting to plenty of the best plays here, right? So it matters, let's go and see how far down in our pool we had to go. Even at Mini Neeks 4, which on DraftKings, that's about half of your lineup. We're only at lineup 52 out of 500. So that's still about the top 10% of your pool. I think this is like a great happy medium. One, half of your lineup is different from every other lineup in the pool. And then 2, you're still in like the top 10% of, your EV pool, right? So I think, as you go down in lineup pool, what you are doing is you are trading EV for less variance, right? And I think that's okay to an extent, right? I think that's a good trade-off to make. DFS is a really high variance game, and the swings can be really big, right? Especially if you're going all in on EV, right? Unless you bink, that's going to be really high variance. I would also offset that with like some bankroll decisions as well. But here, half our lineup is different. We're still in the top 10% of our pool. We could increase, our diversification and go deeper into the pool. But now, we're pushing 300s. Let's see if we can get to 6. Oh no, we can't. So even at 5, we can only get 10 lineups that meet that metric. But if we did, let's say we're getting like 3 lineups that are all, 491, 495, 499. Like, are those, 3 lineups that you want to play? Like, is giving up that much EV for diversification worth it? At that point, I'm not sure, right? We're at 5 mini neeks here. And we have 10 lineups. Kobe White's now in 4 of them. So, he's now in less than half of the available lineups that we had, because so many lineups have gotten ruled out because he was probably in so many of them that they had the same combinations, right? So that's like a trade-off you're making. I think trying to find a middle point between diversification and, lineup upside, lineup quality, lineup approximate EV is probably better than going all out on diversification. I just, frankly, I don't love giving up that much EV. I'm okay finding a happy medium, but it really is on a player by player basis. Those are just some of my thoughts. I know other users on the team have some different thoughts and love the diversification factor. I think if you relate that to like NHL though, where Scott kind of talks about that, NHL is like a totally different beast. If you guys like read the daily newsletter, the DFS daily newsletter, it's on Twitter. You can sign up for it. They do Slate reviews every single day. They did one on NHL last night, and it really shows you how high variance NHL is. Even like the top NHL players had like, max entering all these contests and like really huge player pools and really spread out on exposures. So that just kind of, NHL, there's so many players in the player pool that kind of formula makes sense. It's different when you compare that to something like NBA, where it's a less variant DFS sport. So, all of that goes back to the conversation earlier where it depends on sport. It depends on, slate size, it depends on all these different things. So Try and handle it the best you can. These are just some of my thoughts on how I like to handle it. All right. Scrolling down here, M Love has a question here. And for those of you posting questions in the YouTube chat, we will get to all of the questions before the end of the show. Going to knock out these last couple here in Discord and then hop over. All right. Question from M Love says, what are the best practices for late swapping when working from multiple builds and using the entry editor? Okay, this is a really good question. And let me see if I could demo this here. I'm just going to enter a couple of these free contests coming up here for MLB. One thing that we usually do is like when there's entry editor questions, I will just enter some of these free contests and do a demo. So I'm just going to enter 2 contests here really quickly. And it looks like there's like a big free entry contest on DK where they're giving away a bunch of cash prizes as well as 4-point play tickets. So that's pretty cool. So I just entered 2 contests for the upcoming slate tomorrow. I'm just going to use salaries as projections for the moment here so we can demo this. I'm just going to continue with salaries. And then that will populate. Going to go over the entry editor, pull in this entries file for the entries that I just did here. So I have these 2 free contests over here on the right. This is like pretty common practice, I would say, working from multiple builds, especially if you're separating your contests into diversifiers and elevators. When I am separating my contests into diversifiers and elevators, I like to do 2 different swaps and then upload those together. So like that's pretty common practice for me. The way I handle this is that, late swap will be toggled on automatically once the slate starts. I will just uncheck the contests in this contest dropdown over here or this contest page, and then go back to my settings. Maybe I'm doing my single entry swap. So I'm going to set my settings. That way the sliders change. And then I'm going to rebuild, this contest or this set of contests. And then let's say, I'm rebuilding it 10 times here. So then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this late swap load, and then I'm going to go, make any adjustments I need to. And then I'm going to hit this download new entries. When you hit this download new entries, one, it's going to download a file, but I'm not going to do anything with that file. I'm going to go back to this entries tab. And then basically, once you click that green download new entries button, you are telling the builder that you are using this lineup. This is your lineup that you're going to upload. So the builder will automatically fill that in for you in the entry editor. So we could see that, the lineup that I just built, fill method is late swap. So that lineup is applied here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a new late swap here. And then this time I am going to uncheck the contest I already late swap for, or set of contests. This idea can be expanded. And then I'm going to check the other contests or set of contests that I'm swapping for. And maybe now these are my diversifiers, my 150 maxes. I'm going to change the settings. The sliders are going to update. And then now I'm going to run a new late swap for these lineups. And then I'm going to go through the same exact process here. So lineups are going to build. I'm going to make my adjustments. I'm going to hit this download new entries. Now I'm going to go back to the entry editor. I'm going to make sure that all the contests here now say late swap, and then they will say different times here. I'm going to check them all in. And then now I'm just going to do one big download on the entry editor. And then this new file will have all of the contests with the late swap lineups. And then I will upload that all together one time. So I think that's the best way for handling late swap when you are separating your contests into multiple builds. You could do 2 builds, 3 builds, however many you want. Go in, do the late swaps, just hit the download, never upload anything until you're ready to upload them all together at once. But really good question. I think we actually have a tutorial on that. I did a video kind of walking through that a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago. So if you go to help, take you to sabersim.com/support. And then you go to, I would go down to frequently asked questions. And then this will create open up our library. I would go to late swap. And I want to see if I can find it here. Let's see if I can find it. It's Jordan. Go back to late swap. I know I did a video somewhere here, kind of walking through it, but maybe I can't find it. Maybe, you know, if you guys are interested in looking for that, I could probably find it after the show and just let you guys know tomorrow if that's on here or not. But I'll look around for it. But I do think we have a tutorial kind of walking through how to do that specific multi-build late swap scenario. So I will make a note for myself here to try and find that. So find multi-build late swap vid. And then I'll let you guys know about it tomorrow. Okay, last question in the Discord here from Chuck the Pure. Chuck said, hey, Andrew, I remember Matt talking about adjusting sliders in the Sliders Deep Dive Pro video. This gave me the idea to use satellite default settings for yesterday's NHL slate. I got absolutely annihilated, but I wonder if using the aggressive satellite sliders for GPPs would be a good idea or not. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, so my, good question. My thoughts are that one, the slider settings for satellites are going to be more aggressive because in a satellite, you're really looking to, place first to win that satellite ticket. If it's one ticket or if it's like a mega qual where you can win multiple, you still need to finish pretty high in the contest. You're not getting anything for finishing 20th percentile, 10th percentile, 5th percentile most of the time in like that type of contest. So one, you are going to assume more risk. Those lineups are going to be higher upside, but also, higher risk as well. A lot of the times when I'm finishing like dead last in a satellite, I'm pretty happy with that. And then, the next day I might finish first, right? So you kind of have to have that like all or nothing approach with some of these satellites, unfortunately. But like, consistently finishing in the top 10 and never winning a ticket is not going to get you anything, right? It's better to finish like first or last, kind of Ricky Bobby mentality there for some of these satellites, right? So understand the risk that comes with. And then, do I think it's good for GPPs? For most of the time, no. But if you are somebody who is playing these super top heavy GPPs, like maybe you're somebody who was playing the 150 max NASCAR tournament last weekend, the Millie Maker. So like it's literally $1 million to first. Total prize pool is like 2.25 million. That's almost 50% of the prize going to first. So like, is that closer to a GPP or is that closer to a satellite? Like for me, that's closer to a satellite, right? These crazy top heavy GPPs. Maybe you had a couple tickets, right? I know Jordan won like 20 tickets to the NASCAR Millie through, lower dollar satellites. Maybe, if you're somebody who's going in with like 20 tickets, maybe you do want to build on satellite settings to just shoot for upside. That, you probably didn't pay the full amount in entry fees. So your investment is lower and then you're trying to just shoot for max upside there. I think that's totally okay. Right. So in that scenario, I think that, depending on the payout structure of the contest, I would consider using satellite settings under certain circumstances. But if it's like a flatter, more standard GPP, I would probably just stick with the regular GPP settings. All right. That was our last question in Discord. Hopping over to the YouTube chat. Appreciate all of the questions today. Franklin said, what's up, Andrew? Did you ever find out, are they going to add the strokes gain column to the golf app? This data is very important in golf. Thank you. So Franklin, I do not know if that is coming or not. I do take feature requests back to the team for the team to review, to put in the app. Frankly, I don't think we have any detailed stats for golf at the moment. Or actually, yeah, we do have some. But I will, I can follow up. I can always follow up. And then I can always take it back to the team as a second mention. So Frank, shots gained, feature request. So I will go and dig that up, find it, see where it's at in the queue, and put another tick on it to let the team know that people are continuing to ask for that. All right. Pi Daniel said, any value in dropping salary to 0 to allow for more variance. I think this is in relation to the golf question that we were talking about earlier. So in the most extreme cases, yes, I can see value in doing that. I think that's an okay approach. I don't think you have to, but in the worst weather weeks, I think it's okay. Even I want to do a test right here just to kind of show you guys this. Even in scenarios where you give the builder more flexibility, right? And you allow the builder to build a lineup where the min salary is at 0, the builder's still going to do a really good job of not using like super low salaries and still playing salaries where still playing lineups where the salaries are higher, the projected points are higher, the constructions are better. We do this example with NBA a lot where we just get rid of any min default filter, allow the builder to put anybody in the lineup, and then go and look at what the min projected players are. And then even then, lower projected players are still not making it into the lineups at a really high frequency here. So in this test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to we turn min salary to 0. I'm going to sort by salary, but I'm going to sort by the inverse of the salary. So what this is going to do is that it's going to do like salary ascending, where the lowest salary lineup in our pool of 500 lineups is shown first. And even in this example where we turned off min salary, our lowest salary lineup is 47,200, for all the audio listeners who are not looking at the screen here. So even with a min salary of 0, it still built a lineup above the 47,000 salary as the lowest salary lineup in our pool. So I think that's a great example of, the builder really understands that, it's not that salary is needed, but that, salary is directly correlated to projected points, right? And projected points are needed. And it's balancing all of these factors with ownership fade. So we're still getting plenty of high salary lineups, regardless of the min salary being set to 0. So if you want to open it up to 0, I think that's fine. The builder is still going to give you good lineups is the key takeaway there. All right. Adolfo said, how many uniques would you use for 3-max GPP PGA tournament, and what do you consider GPP? So GPP literally stands for guaranteed prize pool contest. So like if you were to go into the app, there's head-to-heads, which are cash games. There are, multipliers, which are closer to cash games. There are, I would say anything that's like a tournament, it's specified under like tournament. Those are basically your GPPs. And then there are also satellites, right? So tournament type contests are what we consider GPPs. For a 3-max, right? Let's say I'm building a 3-max. In a 3-max, right? Frankly, there are, 100, we'll say 150-ish golfers in this pool. You're only playing 6 golfers per lineup, right? And, I'm actually just going to use this build that we already ran to save time here. So builder is wigging out on me a little bit here. Not sure what I did. I probably messed something up. I'm going to do a hard refresh here. Anytime the builder is giving you issues, just do a Control-Shift-R or a Command-Shift-R. That'll kind of reset the app and give it just like a good once over, clear the cache and everything like that. So I'm going to use this build here. I'm just going to change my number of lineups to 3. Okay, so I haven't done anything to this build, and it is only using each golfer one time. So that means that we have 18 unique golfers here. So essentially min uniques of 1 is the same as min uniques of 6 here. We're still going to get lineups of 1, 2, 3. This is kind of where I wanted to go with this. You're only playing 3 lineups in a 3-max. There are, 18 total golfers that you can use in your lineups, but there are, 150 golfers in the entire tournament that you can use. I think it's totally okay to only use each golfer once. Even then, you're still only playing about the top 15% of golfers, or you're only playing 15% of players in the player pool, right? So if there's 150 golfers, 10% of golfers would be 15. We're playing 18, so that's a little over 10%. I think it's totally okay to use mini uniques of 6 and only play each golfer once and spread out as much as you want, right? Another thing, though, like this week, there are not a lot of high salary golfers. There's only 2 golfers over 10,000 salary. So like maybe on a week where, instead of Sungjae, it was John Rahm, and John Rahm is the only high salary golfer. Maybe you do want to play Rahm in all 3 lineups, right? So like in a situation like that, it can be slate dependent, but I think it's totally okay to get really, really wide and diversify as much as possible. So I'm totally okay playing up to 6 unique players in a 3 max. All right. Jumanji said, angry Rahm, not great for golf. No, it is not. All right. Patrick said, unrelated, I honestly thought about taking a break from DFS. It's a grind, playing every day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year, playing a lot of sports. It's hard to take a break when every day you're constantly learning and adding more tools to the arsenal. Yeah, Patrick, I would say, honestly, I think that mixing in some breaks is healthy ultimately. It's good for life EV. It's good for, balance and things like that. I'm probably somebody who plays closer to 5 to 6 days a week. I usually almost always take Saturdays off. I'm usually like doing family stuff. I got the wife, I got the 2-year-old. We go to the park, we do whatever. So, I think like for work-life balance, I think it's totally okay to work in some days off and be okay, giving up some edge, that you're grinding out and taking EV in other forms. So I think, finding a schedule that works for you is really important. But some people, love the grind, right? But it can get a little tough. Even think about this, DraftKings is giving out all of these Onyx rewards and packages to the highest stakes players, the guys that are getting, millions of dollars a year in action. They're giving away like these big, week-long golf trip to Pebble Beach and to St. Andrews and, all of these different packages. And like, even the guys with the highest stakes are, taking that time off, taking that vacation, because it's probably one, much needed. They're grinding all these slates, all of the sites, and 2, they're okay giving up, some edge for a week to get some life EV, get a reset, kind of take a break and let the mind relax. So I think finding opportunities to take breaks is ultimately a good thing for your DFS process and for your mindset, all of those things. All right. Jumanji said the All-Star break is a test. So yeah, I mean, it's toward the end of All-Star break. I get, antsy, ready to play some DFS again, but it is a good reset. Petty Theft talked about this, on the last episode of Lowell's. If you guys listen to Lowell's, it's a DFS podcast with Brian Hooper and Peter Overzet, and they had Petty Theft on and he's, high stakes NBA DFS grinder, saying that he doesn't take days off during the NBA season, that this has been a huge reset for him, talking about possibly we're getting some breaks down the second half of the stretch here. But who knows? But, even guys at the highest stakes are feeling that strain, and the relief is sometimes needed. But a lot of good conversation today, everybody. That is our last question in the YouTube chat. We just got through all the questions in the Discord and now the YouTube chat. So appreciate everybody coming on. Looks like we had a pretty good audience today. I think everybody is kind of ready for NBA to be back, but still NHL to play. Go build some golf lineups, get a weekend sweat for the Honda Classic. And until tomorrow, when NBA returns, I will see all of you. Take care and good luck. Bye.